For additional assembly tips and information, please visit our assembly support page for the Ride1UP 700 series. Carefully remove the bike. This is easier with an extra person. Unless you are using a bike stand, we suggest a padded surface and standing the bike upright, not on its side. Remove all parts and tools. Parts include pedals, charger, owner's manual, chainring with crankarm, fenders, rear rack. Thoroughly inspect the box for any remaining parts. We recommend keeping the box for the first 30 days. Tools needed: 15mm wrench, 2 through 10mm hex wrench set, which is included. Cut the zip ties to free up the front fork, front wheel, saddle with seat post, and handlebars. Step 1. Installing the fork. Remove the compression bolt and cap. Slide all components off, noting the order and orientation. The upper and lower bearings are installed in the head tube of the bike. Only the crown race should be on the fork, as shown before installing the fork. The headset bearings should already be installed in the top and bottom of the head tube. With the brake caliper on the left, the wires exiting the frame should stay on their respective sides. Carefully insert the steerer tube of the fork through the head tube. Guide it through the center of the bearings. Seat the fork fully. Install the upper headset components. First the compression ring, center the steerer tube in the headset, and slide the compression ring down until the lip sits in between the fork steerer tube and bearings. Then add the conical and cylindrical spacers. Next, we will slide on the stem with handlebars. Please check orientation for proper wire and cable routing. The display should be on the left, the shifter on the right, and the wire should stay on their respective sides and not cross over. You may need to flip or rotate the handlebars to achieve this. Slide on the stem. Install the cap and bolt. Make sure the fork is properly seated and secure at the top and bottom. Tighten the compression bolt before tightening either stem pinch bolt. Tighten the bolt until you feel some resistance when rotating the handlebars as shown, but not too tight that it will not turn. The fork should only rotate smoothly. It should not shift in any direction relative to the head tube. For now, the pinch bolts on the stem do not need to be tightened. Installing the front wheel. Carefully align the front wheel with the brake rotor on the left. Slide the front wheel into place. Ensure it is fully seated and well aligned. Install the quick release skewer. Note the angle of the conical springs. The cones are pointing inward. It should be tight enough that it is difficult to close and should leave an impression on your hand. You may need to redo this step if the wheel is not properly aligned and spinning smoothly. Installing the front brake. Avoid touching the brake rotor with your fingers. Remove and save the small plastic spacer from the brake caliper. Do not squeeze the brake lever before the brake caliper is installed with disc rotor in place. Slide the brake caliper onto the rotor and begin the bolts by hand. Before tightening fully, squeeze and hold the brake lever to align the brake caliper. Tighten the bolts and release the lever. Inflating the tires. Minimum and maximum PSI is shown on the sidewall of the tires. Use a PSI gauge when inflating. After a few pumps, ensure the tires are properly seated on both sides, all the way around the rim. Carefully place the fender, then headlight, and finally the M6 bolt and washer. Begin threading it by hand. Note the large slot allowing up and down adjustment for the fender and light. Loosen the nut on the fender arms to adjust the length. Install the M5 bolt and nut on each side. Check for final adjustment and clearance before tightening each bolt. Now we can remove the remaining packaging and install the seat post and seat. Loosen the seat post clamp lever. Insert past the minimum insertion point. Tighten the seat post clamp properly. You can also adjust the angle of the seat by loosening the bolt, adjusting the angle, then tightening the bolt on the seat post. The grooves must be properly aligned before tightening. Having the seat parallel with the ground is typically ideal. Using the remaining M5 bolts, we will secure the rear rack and fender. Please note this angled bracket can be shifted left and right for proper alignment, but must be done before installing the light. The rack and fender attachment points shown here also allow the rack to be shifted up and away from the tire, creating clearance. Carefully route the wire and secure the taillight using the remaining M5 nuts. When installing the chainring, make sure the left and right crank are pointed in opposite directions, 180 degrees apart. Slide the chainring on and carefully place the chain onto the chainring. Install the right crank arm and chainring with your 8mm hex wrench. Tighten bolts on both sides as tight as possible by hand, if using a torque wrench, to 40 Nm. Install the pedals by hand. Pedals show L for left and R for right. The left pedal is reverse threaded. Thread this by hand counterclockwise. You can finish tightening with a 15mm crescent wrench. Aligning your handlebars. If a torque wrench is available, torque specifications are listed on the stem. If not, please refer to our assembly support page. Loosen the clamp bolts and rotate the angle and center the handlebars to preference. Tighten the 4 bolts in a cross pattern. Spacing should be even on all 4 corners. We can now align the handlebars and tighten the 2 pinch bolts of the stem. On to the final steps, adjusting the brake calipers. Spin the front and rear wheel. Inspect the clearance between the pads for space. A quick adjustment can be made by loosening the bolts of the caliper, squeezing the brake lever, and then carefully tightening them. Brake adjustment is often needed after assembly. For detailed brake adjustments, please see the link in description below. Make sure your gears are shifting evenly and that the derailleur hanger is straight before riding your bike or using the motor. With the bike off, verify the chain will not go past the largest cog into the wheel when you continue to shift. Failure to do so could result in damage to your new e-bike. Please check the description below for a link on how to properly align and index your gears. Now is a good time to adjust the length of your kickstand. The arm is adjustable to set your preferred standing angle and should be tightened so the bolt doesn't come loose when riding. Removing your battery. Insert and twist key to the unlock position. Use both hands to support the battery and gently rotate the battery knob to release the battery. Reinstalling the battery, ensure it is fully seated with both hands. There is a thin protective cover on the display that can be carefully removed. To turn on the bike, hold the middle button briefly. Press the plus button to increase your pedal assist level. Press the minus button to decrease. Press and hold the plus button to activate the backlit display, headlight, and taillight. Press and hold again to deactivate. For advanced display settings, please see the video in the description below. Now, it is best to make sure everything is properly tightened and secured before making any final adjustments to dial in your preferred riding position. Thanks for watching this overview of the 700 series assembly.